alert, a big win for President Trump and the GOP. Republican Karen Handel defeated Democrat Jon Ossoff in Georgia's special election last night. It's now the Democrats' fifth straight loss since November. How much trouble are they in? This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here today, Sandra Smith, Meghan McCain, Republican strategist and former spokesperson for President George W. Bush, Mercedes Schlapp. And today's #OneLuckyGuy. He does not hold back, people. Fox News contributor and nationally syndicated radio talk show host Kevin Jackson is outnumbered. Good to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Wow.
What better way to spend my birthday with four lovely ladies on Outnumbered?
Excellent. We love it. We've got a
Except
lot
I do
going
miss
on.
my family.
Well, I'm sure they're watching.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
All right, let's roll. Despite pouring millions of dollars into the Georgia special election, Democrats were once again unable to flip a House seat, handing the party one of its most demoralizing losses yet. Here's the night's big winner, Republican Karen Handel.
I have to start, first of all, by saying thank you. You did it, girl! My pledge is to be part of the solution, to focus on governing, to put my experience to work in helping to solve the very serious issues that we're facing in this country.
The loss also denied Democrats the chance to deliver a rebuke to President Trump, who took a victory lap on Twitter, writing this: "Well, the special elections are over, and those that want to make America great again are 5-0. All the fake news, all the money spent equals 0. Jonathan Siri is 100% for us, live in Atlanta with the latest.
Hi, Harris.
Hi.
Well, at one point during Karen Handel's victory speech, she thanked the president, and listen to how the crowd reacted.
But let's not forget our equally great Vice President, Mike Pence.
The crowd liked that, too. Well, early this morning, President Trump tweeted Democrats would do much better as a party if they got together with Republicans on health care, tax cuts, security. Obstruction doesn't work. Democrats had hoped that Jon Ossoff's campaign would serve as a blueprint for how their party could win back Congress during next year's midterm elections. But now strategists are questioning whether Jon Ossoff should have stuck to his centrist platform of promoting job growth and cutting government waste instead of starting his campaign early on with a call to make Trump furious.
Truth is, he wouldn't be this national star that he was. He wouldn't have raised as much money as his 23 million plus without the Trump message, without invigorating liberals from all over the country who donate to his campaign. So I don't know if there's a right answer, but Democrats will be fighting for that answer over the next few months.
And incidentally, that wasn't the only special election going on. While all eyes of the nation were on Georgia's 6th congressional district, South Carolina's 5th district was sailing largely under the radar. Nevertheless, an important race in that one. Republican Ralph Norman beat Democrat Archie Parnell in a race to fill the House seat being vacated by Mick Mulvaney, who joined the Trump administration as budget director. Harris, back to you.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much. So, Kevin, it was interesting last hour on Happening Now. Sherry Bustos, a Democrat out of Illinois, was saying, representative, was kind of spinning it that this is an opportunity for Democrats to move forward. What is really the bottom line here for that party?
We are in the era of Democrat hype. I mean, everything leading up to the special election said that Trump was going to get his mandate, that the Democrats were going to lose, Republicans were going to win, and I liken these guys to woodpeckers in a concrete forest. I mean, they just keep going after the same tree, and unfortunately, it's not working. Look, it's been overdone. It's been overblown. As Trump said, he's 5-0. 2018 is going to be another mandate. I think everything that we've seen up to this point proves exactly what November the 8th proved last year.
It may prove that it's also the end to exit polling.
No question. Obviously we saw in the Real Clear Politics that Handel was actually up by maybe a percentage point. In fact, she won over 3% of the vote.
Yeah.
So I think what it's telling you is that for Republicans, at this point. I don't want them to get too cozy or too comfortable. Sure, they won by 3 points, but that's a district that we should have won by 8 points. It's a traditionally Republican district. Even in South Carolina, that district is a 9+ for Republicans, and we only won it by 3.8% of the vote. That is just a warning sign that for Republicans, while the Democrats don't have a message and they didn't win this election, 2018 is a very different year, and they need to make sure that they have the victories lined up, because there are these 23 swing districts. A lot of these are suburban areas, affluent. Those are the ones that if you get Democrats running on a moderate platform, they're going to be competitive. It's going to be tough. So I really think we have to be cautious about this.
I agree with you to a point, but I disagree. They were close races, but you got to remember, these guys threw $31 million into a race. They can't do that in every race. South Carolina is a little bit of a miss, that one was a little miscalculation because it was closer than they thought, and they certainly didn't put as much effort into it. But even if they put effort into it, it would have been the same outcome. I think that what we're witnessing here, to your point, Harris, with respect to exit polling and polling in general, all lies. With respect to, they made a comment that Handel was not wanting to run with Trump as her base. The minute that they said Donald Trump was, she thanked Donald Trump, all hands go up. So I think that, again, the media hype, the leftist hype that Donald Trump doesn't have the mandate is backfiring completely.
So even though you're hearing from some Democrats, well, this is an opportunity, we need to focus our message, there's some who say we're not even doing that in the wake of this loss. I'm looking at Seth Moulton, a Democrat from Massachusetts. Yep. He said this better be a wake-up call for Democrats. Business as usual is not working. Time to stop rehashing 2016 and talk about the future. Where's that talk
Sandra,
today?
what's the wake-up call? Everything that they're talking about going to are things that Donald Trump's talking about. He's talking about, one of the things was he should have been talking about creating more jobs. What's Donald Trump doing? Creating more jobs. Everything that they run to that's mama's milk is backfiring on them, and Donald Trump is going, I'm creating more jobs. I'm creating a safer America.
So, I guess you could say sort of the same thing for Hillary Clinton is kind of happening for the total Democratic Party. I mean, if you just take a sliver and only look at the part that affects today, yeah, it's 5 straight losses since November. But totally, it's more than 1,000 state House seats and across the spectrum for Democrats across the country.
But there are very basic rules of campaigning that Democrats seem to be missing. On a very basic level, voters don't like being lectured to about their state and about their district from people outside. This man had huge celebrity endorsements. Alyssa Milano, John Leguizamo, Samuel L. Jackson made robocalls. Huge Hollywood money from California, Massachusetts, Silicon Valley, New York City. Democrats have to learn that this is not about what celebrities and East Coast elites want. A lot of these ads against him brought up Nancy Pelosi, saying he was just going to be like Nancy Pelosi. So I said from the beginning that I thought John Ossoff was basically a red herring, that it wasn't going to go to the finish line. But ultimately, if Democrats don't learn that you have to get local in these elections instead of nationalizing everything, they're going to continue to lose.
Hold on before we go, because we want to get to Twitter. Kellyanne Conway, advisor for the White House, had some interesting things to say. And I want to remind everybody that the Democrat candidate's name was Ossoff. That's important. Let me read. She tweeted, "Thanks to everyone who breathlessly and snarkily proclaimed Georgia 6 as a referendum on POTUS. You were right, winning. Laughing my ass off." Now you know why I said that.
Who is snarky there?
I love that. I love that. Look, based on everything that we're seeing so far, and I don't know if we're going to cut to a break, but
no.
Yeah, well, based on everything we're seeing so far, if you think about everything the Democrats have thrown at Donald Trump since the election, I'm talking about the Russiagate, now it's obstruction, all the different litany of people that were in the line of fire with all these different things. They have fought him on every single piece of legislation.
But one thing that's important that Mercedes brought up is the fact that it should have been an election that we won much more handily than we did. But Democrats are making the bet that people, even if they disagree, Republican voters, even if they disagree with Trump, they're automatically going to have a referendum and completely throw out the Republican Party. This specific election showed that that's not necessarily true. Voters can compartmentalize the difference between different types of Republicans and President Trump.
The other point is that when you looked at the Virginia primary race for governor, the Democrats came out at a larger number than the Republicans did. They're very energized in many of these states. And so I do send this warning signal out when it comes to these swing districts. If the Democrats put these moderate candidates in place, that allows them for an opportunity to have a wiggle room. Now, if the Republicans are able to say what they did with Ossoff, the Nancy Pelosi clone, then possibly they're able to to they're able to basically say they're too liberal. They're just going to be.
You're shaking your head.
Well, I know we keep arguing about this. All I'm saying is that for Republicans, this is why it is urgent for them to pass health care.
No,
this is why it is urgent for them to pass
agree,
tax reform. Because you need to make sure you have an agenda that you can say, we worked on it, we did it in Congress, and we accomplished our goals. Does the Trump message resonate? Absolutely.
Yes.
Because of jobs, that on the economy, and you're right, on the local economy part, it is incredibly important. But I do want to proceed with caution.
It does register with his base, but right now the trends when it comes to millennials and college-educated voters, which has traditionally been a Republican base for decades, we're now starting to lose. So Mercedes and I are old road dog campaign people, and let me tell you, there are some signs here coming that we shouldn't be too comfortable right now, and I completely agree. And if we blow Obamacare replacement right now, it will be not disastrous, but it won't be good times.
Democrats better be sweating like Michael Moore on a treadmill.
We should all be sweating.
Wow, that's a visual for you. All right, well, as long as they sweat to the oldies of having a message, I guess, would be really beneficial for that party. This update that we definitely want to bring you on Representative Stephen Scalise since the shooting at that baseball practice in D.C. last Wednesday. Congressman Scalise, this is from the hospital, continues to make good progress. He is now listed in fair condition and is beginning an extended period of healing and rehabilitation. People all over the nation praying for the representative and others who were harmed last week. But this update, the most promising that we have gotten officially about Congressman Scalise. Third in power in the House, a very important man to return to the Hill at some point, but in the meantime, prayers for his recovery. We'll move on. Fresh off this big victory in Georgia that we've been talking about, a new poll shows the president's approval rating has held steady since February. Even after Russia allegations, the firing of former FBI Director James Comey, and the Obama wiretap controversies. We'll talk about the status of the president's supporters and 2018 candidates. And Republican Senate leaders getting ready to unveil a draft version of their health care bill. They're hoping for a vote as early as next week. And of course, they're also hoping it'll pass. Stay close.
Republican Senate leaders are getting ready to unveil their health care bill, looking toward a vote as early as next week. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer weighing in on what President Trump wants.
The president clearly wants a bill that has heart in it. He believes that health care is something that is near and dear to so many families and individuals. He made it clear from the beginning that that was one of his priorities.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying they're going to release a discussion draft tomorrow, and he says it won't be the same as the bill the House came up with.
We're going to lay out a discussion draft Thursday morning. You'll be able to take a look at it. I think you've heard from some of my colleagues the likely highlights of it, and I wouldn't want to compare it to the House bill. It'll speak for itself. It'll be different, and take a different approach based upon these endless discussions we've had with the only people interested in changing the law, which is Republican senators.
All right, well, some House conservatives are warning not to make too many changes to the bill that passed in the House. Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows sounding a bit more optimistic this morning.
We need to make sure we prioritize two things. One is we drive down premiums, and the second is that we cover pre-existing conditions. I am concerned with some of what we're hearing reported at this point, but I think it's too early to put a fork in it and say it's done. I can tell you that we're committed to making sure we repeal it and replace it, and I'm optimistic that after it's rolled out tomorrow, that we'll have a whole lot of discussions.
All right, so a lot to dig into there, Kevin. But start first with the president saying he wants a health care bill with heart. What exactly does that mean?
You know, he's always hinted all along that he still wants to cover, obviously, pre-existing conditions and some of the things that Obamacare was written for. And I think most Americans are fine with that. I think the problem is we've spent so much money with implementing the system, watching it fail, the projections on what the costs are. If you took that pool of people out that really do need catastrophic coverage and things like this, which, by the way, is available in the regular healthcare system, it would be a fraction of the cost. So I think that he's going to have a tough time selling the idea of how to do that without burdening the taxpayer when the overwhelming number of people that need health care do not fall in the catastrophic range.
Mercedes, how did you interpret that?
Well, it is about the pre-existing conditions. This is about ensuring that individuals don't lose their insurance, especially if they do have the pre-existing condition. But there's something bigger here as well, which is how are you going to rescue the individual market, right? How do you stabilize this individual market, which what we're seeing right now is Obamacare falling apart. It's how are you going to bring in more young people into the marketplace where they can't afford it? How are you able to bring down premiums for the middle class? So I think those are the questions and the issues that the Senate bill is tackling. The Senate views the House as a good start, but they want to have their substitute. It's where they've had their individual members coming in, these Republicans giving their input. And so I think you're going to see Mitch McConnell strike that balance. He's listening very clearly to what the administration wants, but strike that balance between conservatives and moderates, meaning we try to bring down the premiums, but at the same time, we have to realize this is really their last chance. Their last chance to repeal Obamacare. We've been talking about this for 6-7 years. If they don't get this right this time on the budget reconciliation, we are going to be moving towards a single-payer system, which would be catastrophic for the United States.
All right, so a lot at stake. And what do you make of that, Megan McConnell warning? All right, there's going to be changes, but don't make too many big changes here from the House bill.
I think ultimately the bill won't be terribly different than what passed in the House. I do think moderates are going to come to the middle, and people from the Senate version of the Freedom Caucus are going to come to the middle as well. My concern continues to be these weird timelines, that it has to be done by the 4th of July. 4th of July is going to come real soon. We criticized for the last 6 to 7 years Obamacare being pushed and rushed through without enough, emphasis from other people. So the idea that we're going to repeat the same mistake.
So, Megan, we have 45 days in a legislative calendar, and so they
may come back in August.
Window.
There was talk of that. They may come back.
I just think you know about the Senate. They don't take. They don't.
We don't know though. I mean, we've had some things happen here that may change
I think it will happen within the next month. I think the 4th of July is a pipe dream.
I think I'm sorry.
I would just say that there have been some things that have changed that. We got a couple of things that hinge now. We've been waiting for insurers to tell us what their new price lines are going to be before we head into the fall new enrollment period. So, I mean, I'm not forecasting that it would happen in August, but there is more strong talk about do we need to come back? What happened last week, unfortunately, on that baseball field, not affecting the Senate in terms of how it does business, but all of Congress. They may feel like they need to come back.
This latest election, I think, will have an impact.
And this does too. So is there some momentum that they could capitalize on?
I repeat, they are not going to cancel their August recess.
Well, they don't have to cancel all of it. They could just come back for a couple days.
Extend it maybe a couple days.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, we're saying the same thing.
He's very focused.
But the bottom line is this false timeline that Megan is talking about that puts everybody in sort of a weird gear of trying to go up against the 4th of July.
It's not just a false timeline, it's the lexicon. So we're talking about pre-existing conditions. Well, what is that? If you have seborrhea, that's a pre-existing condition. But if you have cancer, it's a pre-existing condition. So we get into these philosophical battles over lexicon with the left. Do you want to cover the biggest part of it? And if we really look at this thing the right way, I think Trump will look at it and say, look, guys, we're not talking about small things. We're talking about the bigger things. And for the record, you're dealing with a guy who's used to winning. And I think that that's the one factor in all of this. We're not talking about a pure politician.
But this is how it works. Congress likes to procrastinate. They wait till the last minute. This is how they push these deals.
But they've gotten away with that.
This is how they get it done. But they recognize that they have a limited window, and they are going to try to push this through in the Senate through July 4th, before the July 4th recess, and then have this the conversation with the House on getting these bills together and finalized.
And ultimately, we should move on to tax reform, which is, I think, the main goal, at least what I had originally wanted them to start with. And if this ends up failing, tax reform is, again, going to be even more difficult.
All right, market's still optimistic. Still new highs in the U.S. stock market this week. All right, well, a stinging defeat in Georgia, making Democrats 0 for 4 in this year's special elections. Now a new poll showing voters changing attitudes toward the party that may explain why. Plus, special counsel Robert Mueller reportedly adding yet another Democrat to his team of Trump-Russia investigators. The new addition has given to both the Clinton and the Obama campaigns whether the probe can really be unbiased.
Take it away here. All right, Connie.
As Republicans celebrate their big win in the Georgia special election, a new Pew poll shows President Trump's approval rating holding steady since February, despite a string of challenges, including the Russia probe and the backlash over his firing of FBI Director James Comey. Meantime, while people don't give very good marks to either political party, and a majority say the GOP is too extreme, that same poll shows a big jump in those who say Democrats are too extreme as well, up from 37% to 45% since last March. Okay, Mercedes, are you surprised that President Trump's approval ratings are staying strong? He's not shedding his base at all.
I am not surprised at all. And I think this goes back to Kevin's earlier point, which is the fact that he is keeping his campaign promises. I always say that's the untold story of this political season, is the fact that the president said we're going to bring jobs to America. We're going to move on deregulation. We're going to push tax reform. We're going to move on health care. He's talking about infrastructure spending. He is moving on these very important priorities. And I think when you go, and I've been out speaking in rural America, and basically they're frustrated. They're frustrated because they keep saying, why is the Senate so focused on the Russian investigation? Why aren't we talking about jobs? And there is that solid support that they're not going to be leaving Trump because they think he's being true to his word. That also includes for conservative priorities on pro-life issues as well, and the Gorsuch nomination.
Well, it's my birthday, but I'm giving my present to America, and it is Donald Trump. Look,
all right.
everything that...
I don't know what that means.
What I mean is that, look at this guy. He's a rock star.
Okay.
I mean, no matter what we talk about, whether you're talking about foreign policy, I said the other day, he weaves foreign policy and domestic policy like Charlotte's Web. I mean, it makes...
But let me just interject really quick. He hasn't been completely uncontroversial. I mean, he has had a lot of things going on that have been distractions, whether they're valid or not. They have been media distractions.
That's okay.
He hasn't been given a honeymoon period whatsoever by the media.
Right.
Are you concerned at all that he doesn't seem to be advancing his base?
I don't think the poll, I think the poll is the same poll that said Hillary Clinton was going to win.
That's fair.
I mean, I look at these polls. Every time somebody gives me a poll, I just think to myself, the American people are so polled out. We don't believe it. We don't believe the media. It's the very media that we despise and who he's declared as fake media, and we now know it to be true, that are giving us these new poll numbers. Donald Trump is knocking it out of the park. He doesn't give you unemployment figures. He tells you companies that are going to be hiring and how many, and they do hire.
So, Harris, I have to read this tweet for you because I want your reaction. So, Neera Tanden, who worked very closely with Hillary Clinton on her campaign, tweeted, "One important lesson is that when they go low, going high doesn't bleeping work," and that bleeping started with an F. That's sure a message
It doesn't
for the
friendly
voters of
work.
America.
It doesn't fairness work. Yeah, okay, so we continue the Democrats cussing at the audience. I mean, come on, that's not news. But the point that you're making is, so now they're going to turn around the game of taking the high road and take the low road. Is that what their game plan is going to be? And does that come with a message at all either? I want to piggyback off of something that Mercedes said, though. If Republicans are doing as you say and getting their gear together and getting things done, Democrats must be looking at that and saying, wait a minute, we've got to stop talking Russia, Russia, Russia. I mentioned Representative Bustos was on last hour of Happening Now. One of the things she said was when she's out, a Democrat, on the trail now, ahead of 2018 election, she said nobody is asking her about Russia. She said, I need to concentrate on the things that people care about.
She's not
That's
the first
a Democrat
one to say
talking.
that, though, Harris, and not to interrupt Mercedes, but we're hearing this now all over the country. People know Russia is a red herring, pardon the pun.
So why are we stuck on it?
Russia is the Democrats' play card. This is a card that they've been wanting to play since the election because they do believe that this is what's going to bring down the president. The Russian investigation is what's going to lead to the impeachment of President Trump. It's not working because even when you have the fact that so many individuals, even Democrats, are starting to question there is no evidence of collusion with Russia and President Trump. But what would be helpful with President Trump is if he would stop tweeting about the investigation. Step away from it. Get it with your message.
As I said last week, back away from the chief.
And forgive me if somebody already pointed this out as far as the stats that we're talking about here, but Americans continue to be critical of both parties. When you dig into these numbers, just 40% view the Republican Party favorably and just 44% view Democrats
That's probably
favorably.
a big step up, though, for the Republicans. I mean, look, Trump has been a breath of fresh air. When you talk about Donald Trump, you're not talking necessarily about the Republican Party. You're talking about a guy who has bucked the establishment.
Yeah, that's true.
While Bernie and those guys got cheated by the Dems, Donald Trump fought the Republican Party. And what you're going to see is he's going to make that transition.
All right.
Very interesting.
Well, Special Counsel Robert Mueller reportedly adding yet another Democrat to his team of Trump-Russia investigators, a lawyer in the office of the Solicitor General who's given to both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's presidential campaigns. That's in addition to at least 3 other Mueller recruits who have reportedly given more than $50,000 to Democrats since 1988. Trump supporters say that raises big concerns that the investigation will be biased against the president. Meantime, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer fielding a question during yesterday's briefing about the existence of audio recordings.
Okay, second question, if I might, about the tapes between the president and James Comey. Were those tapes made? Do they exist? And will the president be releasing them to the House Intelligence Committee by Friday?
The president has said that he will make an announcement on this. I expect it this week. And so when he's ready to make that announcement, we'll let you know. That's it.
All right. House Intelligence Committee ranking member Adam Schiff has warned he will subpoena any tapes if the White House fails to respond by its deadline this Friday. The reason I was talking to that bite is Harris said, your stomach's growling.
I'm about to snap to the beat of that.
Noon hour on the East Coast. Okay. So
It's like a hip-hop tune over here.
to you first, your thoughts.
Well, first of all, you know, I want to go back to Mueller really quickly. I think this is very important because there's a consistent pattern where on his legal team, he's hiring these Democrats who are giving thousands of dollars to either Obama, a Clinton super PAC, whatever you want to call it. Then secondly, there's a big concern here. There are 2 lawyers who were part of a law firm that represented the other side, the defensive side. So the problem with that in particular is that they could have had access to information. And so you have to bring up these questions because you have to ask yourself, why would Mueller bring these individuals in knowing that they were part of a law firm that they were representing the other side?
But bingo, you just nailed it.
Why?
So why? Why is Donald Trump's not complaining? The entire Trump team, nobody's complaining. That's what America's be asking itself. Why is it that Donald Trump, knowing this, knowing that the deck is stacked against him, saying, I don't care, because he knows nothing's there? Does he seem nervous?
That wouldn't still concern you?
Not at all.
That was you?
Not at all. Look, if you're innocent of something, even though the deck's stacked against you, he's in control. He's got, I mean, he may not have all the people on his side in the Justice Department and all that, but he is the guy now at the helm.
But it continues to give the American public a reason to mistrust this investigation. This investigation was supposed to be about whether or not they had any collusion with Russia. Now it has turned into why and whether or not President Trump was that. But let me just finish. Now it has turned into the firing of James Comey, which President Trump had every constitutional right to do. So it has switched from what the original investigation was supposed to be about, turned into this so highly politicized. I don't think you can find a person in America that doesn't think this is a politicized investigation. So why Robert Mueller would continue to go find attorneys that have these ties to the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation blows my mind.
But again, who does it help in the end? Donald Trump's not complaining. He's not telling Mueller, hey, look, why don't you go make it fair and balanced here? You know,
part of the question and part of the reason I think the president might not be panicking is because there are reports now of such leaks out of the Mueller investigation that, I mean, how can you hope that it would ever be fair, to use your word, ever be justified or justice truly when you've got things leaking? And that has been the hallmark of every presidency. There's always leaks.
And leaks coming from a special counsel, that basically compromises the investigation
absolutely.
in and of itself.
Absolutely.
But what would happen if Donald Trump started complaining about the people that
he doesn't have to complain. We can all see that.
Yeah.
But I'm complaining, and we should complain. The American people should complain.
But the president should just do his job.
But for those politically biased.
But for those of us that care about the domestic agenda, it also hijacks the narrative. I don't want to be talking about Russia and Mueller for the next 3.5 years right now, and that's what they will accomplish, especially by placing this deck with a bunch of liberals who have ties to the Clinton Foundation. I don't want to sit here and talk about this forever. And by the way, as we just discussed on the couch, I don't think the American public want that either.
They don't. But when it's all said and done, and he stacked the deck against Trump, and it comes back and there's nothing there, what he's done is he's putting a death nail in the Democrats. You wanted this. You got everything you wanted in terms of the people that investigated me, and you know what you came up with? Bupkis.
Yeah.
Now I get to go back to my agenda, and the next thing you bring up, I get to now tweet about
But don't
it.
you think, just from a strategy point, don't you think this White House should say, whoa, hold on a second, can't you go find somebody that doesn't have these ties?
I think Sandra, they're saying give these people enough rope to hang themselves. At least that's what I'm
I think the White House is in a difficult position where they could make an opinion about this, but I do believe that from the outside, we need to be voices out there to ask these questions.
I agree with Mercedes on that. Trump would be called an obstructionist if he said anything about this.
Well, and if they just let this cook and bake on its own without having too much input, the president via tweeting or whatever.
And now you're talking about food after what I just said.
Then it would be really helpful, because then they could just all concentrate on their jobs. And if this one Democrat representative is true, if she's right, nobody wants to talk about this.
If the situation were reversed and a Democratic president were being investigated by a bunch of Republicans with ties to the Bush administration and Bush foundations giving money, Democrats would be screaming bloody murder in the street, and it's absolute hypocrisy.
Yeah, but that hasn't worked for him either, so. What'd you say you're making? All right, President Trump getting back to what he does best. Tonight, he will be holding his 5th campaign-style rally since taking office. So what can we expect to hear? And is this a good way for the president to rally his base amid ongoing challenges? That will be next.
So, hot off the GOP's special election victory in Georgia last night, President Trump is gearing up to hold a big rally in Iowa. He'll make remarks on trade and agriculture before heading to his Make America Great Again event later tonight. A big issue for Iowans, health care. Well, that's a big issue for everybody. They are down to just one insurance company on the Obamacare exchange, and it just requested a 43% rate hike for next year. This is the president's 5th campaign-style rally since taking office, and many see it as a good way to rally his base and legislative challenges and Russia-related controversies to push those into the background.
I love this. The timing couldn't be better.
So you're a fan.
I'm a fan. And I'm not one of these guys that was a Trump, died in the war.
You weren't?
I was not.
You are now.
I am now, because I'm watching what he could do, and I knew that the potential existed for a businessman, particularly one with his background, to do what he's doing. But you look at this, first of all, it tells you he anticipated the win for Georgia. So he's going to have a rally. He wouldn't be having a rally if Georgia lost, if he were 4-1. He's 5-0.
Well, he's got a little experience with wrong exit polling. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's that. And then he's watching Obamacare die on the vine. I mean, what possibly better scenario to walk into with these guys with a 43% rate hike?
So what's complicated that I see right now, and having the president bring Obamacare recipients and those who've had so many problems both for their families and businesses to the White House. We've seen him do that in recent months and weeks. We've seen him go to places like Ohio and others to talk to people on the ground. I mean, he's really in this now more than ever.
Oh, he's been in it since day one, and he's also very impatient and wants to get the work done. And one thing you learn in Washington is that things move very slowly. They don't work at his pace or at a business level pace here. But I think it's very critical for the president to get out of the White House. One thing in working in the White House, you're in a bubble. You just don't have that direct connection to the American people. And for the president, he feeds off of their energy. And he's really able to connect with the American people, going to these rallies, and as well as visiting with Americans across the country. You get a very different vibe and feel when you get out of Washington. And so I think for the president, it's his way to be able to directly talk to the people without having all the media basically.
So not just to rally the base, but to rally himself and get himself back to where he came from.
I don't know if he has to rally himself. Look, how many presidents, Republicans, have ever done anything like this, especially coming off of a win like that? I mean, this is P.T. Barnum's showmanship at its finest, and it's really taking a page away from the left, who tend to do these types of things. They're the ones that rally and protest and do these things. Here's Trump saying, first of all, it was never a mandate that people wanted Obamacare. People don't remember that. There was no overwhelming want for this piece of legislation, but now suddenly to take it away, it's a bad thing. Well, it's not the case.
Is there any risk of the president getting out there and kind of going forward, or is it all win-win?
I mean, I think in regards to this rally, I compare it to getting a musician out of the studio and bringing them to go to a concert. It's good for morale. It's good for him. There are reports that he's not doing well, that he feels stifled within the White House, that he's bored. So I think anytime you can get him out, remind him why he won, why he's president of the United States, it's great for his base. Is it great for anyone else? Is it going to move the needle towards independents who are still on the fence? No, not at all. No. But I think it's actually good for morale. And as you said, anytime he can get out of the White House, he's not an innately political animal. I think it'll be good for him.
Political risk? Actually, I don't see the political risk because I think you're able to control your message better. One thing the White House press corps hates to do is get out of Washington and get out of their cozy seats in the press briefing room. Get them on a plane where it's hot and they're going to Iowa and they can't even focus on anything else except what the president's talking about. It's fantastic. But more importantly, I think what you're starting to see is a control of messaging within
That's exactly
the West.
That was my question. Is
exactly
it better controlled in this environment or in the White House?
It's getting better in the sense that you're starting to see week by week they're starting to release what would be a theme. So, for example, last week or 2 weeks ago was workforce development and the apprenticeship and vocational training.
Right.
1 week was infrastructure spending. They really are trying to get a better control
But expect the message to be a lot on the economy. I mean, you just heard Paul Ryan speaking about jobs that have been created, that are being created. The American stock market is skyrocketing to all-time highs. Expect to hear a lot of that.
That's such a great point, too, because the speaker said, or it was reported this morning, that he wants to meet with Ivanka Trump to talk about family leave and to talk about some of those personal economics issues.
Everyone wants to meet with Ivanka Trump.
All right. Remember Eric Holder? Well, he's now gearing up to take on President Trump, while the controversial former attorney general says he plans to lead the legal resistance against the president, which may even include a possible run for the White House. Really?